In fact, I think we're just going to go ahead and dive into our first full segment, and that is all about Yokai Collectibles. And let's see here. Let me pretend that I'm about to go get my guests. I'll be right back. Hang on.
Kong.
Oh, there he is. Cheers, Kong.
Chong, let's drink.
Very pleased to introduce the next guests for this jam-packed yokai spectacular that we have going on here today. That would be no other than Hiroko, Yoda, and Matt Alt, the dynamic duo who have produced such incredible works as Yokai Attack, Ninja Attack, Yurei Attack, and I'm not exactly sure how both of them were involved, but I've also got Japandemonium here too, which I'm sure they had a hefty hand in doing as well.
Oh, yes.
And when I want to reach out to the yokai, the closest yokai experts I know, who are closest to the source, these are the guys that I'm going to talk to from now on out. Matt, of course, I talked to briefly for the Super Saturday Sofubi show, not so briefly actually, about the birth of Sofubi.
Yes.
And his wife Hiroko is here with him to talk about a subject they both love, and that is the things that go bump in the night in Japan around this time of year.
Yes.
The yokai. Welcome to Collectible Monsters, guys.
Thank you for having us. So great introduction. I'm Matt Alt. This is Hiroko Yoda. We are a married couple who does a lot of writing about yokai. And we wrote this book, Yokai Attack.
He has a collectible one.
Yes.
This is a new version.
Yeah, Kyle, the one you showed us a minute ago, that's the old out of print green cover. This is the, collectible.
Ooh, that's right. Smells like value.
Sell that on eBay. And we've done a lot of writing and research about yokai. We did Yokai Attack. We did sequels, Ninja Attack and Yurei Attack, which is all about ghosts. And as you held up, Japandemonium Illustrated, which is Hiroko and my translation
and anecdote
and annotation of a 1700s yokai encyclopedia by a guy named Toriyama Seki. We can get into that later. But actually, Hiroko is the yokai person. She brainwashed me. I was like an anime kid. So you grew up with yokai, right?
Yes.
Yokai.
I always loved yokai. I mean, I scratched that. I always loved spooky things. And a yokai is one of it. I love, even though I was a kid, like say, 6 years old, 7 years old, I'm a kid. But I always looked for the dark area, like say, open the closet and then close it and open the closet and then closing it and then open it again and then see if something is in there or just try to seek it. I mean, I never managed
yokai hunter from a young age.
Yes.
I understand.
Yes. But I was fascinated just because there's some fun feeling attached to it. I'm not really believing it, but I want to believe in it just because it's fun. Especially yokai. Yokai are not really scary like ghost. Ghost is someone. So it's a people. There's always some kind of sad story attached to it. But a yokai, it's something. So it's wild thing. It could be anything like say humanoid, human-looking thing, or weird-looking creatures, or puns, words play, or a natural phenomenon, unexplainable things, and you can of course imagine things. Whole thing, it's basically everything but kitchen sink type of thing is yokai, and that really gave me a pleasure. Even I was a little child.
Yeah.
Then,
and even the kitchen sink too, right? Like
exactly. I mean, if you leave it for more than 100 years old, maybe it turned into yokai and started walking around.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I met Matt, but when I met him, he was already kaiju.
Sure.
And
I was into the standard.
You can explain.
I was into the standard Japanese pop culture stuff. I was into anime. I was into tokusatsu. I was into Ultraman. I was into Ultra 7. And things like that, and all sorts of anime robots. And Hiroko was like, if you like these modern day characters so much, you might like these really ancient characters too.
Yeah.
And until that point, I had literally only known, I thought, this is maybe, we're talking like 25 years ago now. I had literally thought the only yokai I knew were from a very famous cartoon series that I'm sure many people watching know, which is called Gegege no Kitaro. And I thought they were characters from that show, which I thought was a really cool show. I thought it was really great. Right. But what I didn't realize until Hiroko told me is like, yes, Kitaro is a creation of that manga artist, but a lot of the other creatures in there are actually not. They're from folklore. And that really blew me away. And
fantastic. Now you mentioned Gegege no Kitaro, which I'm kind of curious. That can't be the beginning of yokai in pop culture, right?
No.
In Japan, at least.
No. I mean, if you really want to go back to kind of origins, you can go back literally over 1,000 years. There's books out there. There's ancient books like Konjaku Monogatari, which tells that's from about, what year is that? 1200 or so. Yeah. Which that book is it's kind of its title, and it translates into tales from long ago, and it tells a lot of kind of local stories, some of which are quite scary. Like, so back in time, yokai were these kind of inauspicious sorts of presences, right?
Yeah.
And then they started to become, and way back in time, they didn't have any visual presence at all. Japanese religion is actually really associated with not having a lot of visuals of its deities. Like, there's a lot of kami. In fact, there's said to be like 8 million kami, which are gods in to translate it roughly.
Small g.
In Japanese domestic Shinto religion, but they traditionally do not have any imagery associated with them. And the same thing was true for scary things too. Things like oni or things like yokai, they didn't have visual presences. They were believed to be there and cause all sorts of bad misfortunes, but you couldn't see them. Then around the 1500s, this is when you start to see the first art of yokai, where people are trying to portray their physical characteristics. And whether these pieces of art were made as social satire, as Hiroko said, which is definitely possible, whether they were made as kind of parables, like kind of, moral parables or like Buddhist parables or something like that, they served all sorts of functions, but it's obvious that the artists had a lot of fun drawing them. And they usually took the form of scrolls. And so these scrolls start to become really, really popular around the 1500s, 1600s. But these are like pieces of art. Like, you have to be a really wealthy person to own them. Like, average person can't really see these things. They didn't have like museums and stuff back then. So the real flourishing of yokai culture came about in the 1700s, when it's known as the Edo era. Yokai are starting to already feed into pop culture at that point. But as for collectible pop culture, I think the best example are these Karuta cards.
Right.
So this is a replica set of yokai Karuta cards from the 1800s, the 19th century. And this is one of the earliest examples of an actual like collectible / consumer yokai product. Hundreds. And this was reissued in this box set, which you can still find around. It's called Yokai Karuta. And I believe it's definitely Edo era, which means it's pre-1850-ish. So we're talking, 1850s probably.
Right.
But 20th century, right? You have the first seminal thing is Tono Monogatari, that book, Tales from Tono. And Tales from Tono came out around 1915 in Japan. But
the war happened and the thing started. It's just basically redo.
Yeah.
And then Mizuki Shigeru.
Well, so that brings us to the post-war era.
Yeah, post-war era. Yeah.
Japan's destroyed. Like, not much in the way of entertainment at this time. So one of the first industries to start going again is the printing industry, to get books and magazines and comic books and stuff out. And this was not like a high, sophisticated literature era. They were churning out like pulp thrillers and things like that. And so spooky stories, yokai stories, all sorts of, creepy tales were very popular in that era of storytelling. And that's actually when Mizuki Shigeru, the guy who did Gegege no Kitaro, Kitaro in 1960s sparks this huge boom for yokai, culture, and everybody's obsessed. All the kids are obsessed with Kitaro, but Japanese Kitaro is copyright, C in a circle. but yokai are not copyrighted as a concept. And so you saw a flood of merchandise coming onto the market. Are things like this. This is like a vintage encyclopedia of yokai from about that time. And it's just full of really awesome illustrations. God, I love this one. Gorgeous. It's full of really awesome illustrations of, yokai from folklore and things like that. This is Yuki Onna, a really famous yokai, a woman who is kind of the anthropomorphization of freezing and snow.
See, this is another interesting thing. This is a catalog, right? Catalog encyclopedia.
Yeah.
It's like a Seiken book was this encyclopedia. So something never changed.
Let's get into some modern day examples. I would love to see, you've shown me some of the old stuff. Let's see some of the newer yokai collectibles that you guys have. Yep, let me full screen you there for that Kappa magic.
Yeah, actually, so these are by this is interesting. So most of the yokai toys you see these days are Kitaro stuff, and there's a lot of Kitaro merchandise out there, and it's great. But what we've seen in recent years, like the last 10 to 15 years, are independent toy companies making their own kind of original. These are by Marmot. They're soft vinyl, and you might recognize this guy because they're actually basing these. Hold that up. They're actually basing these off of characters from old scrolls, and because you don't have to pay. Yeah, he's in there.
You just saw it.
You don't have to pay a licensing fee for these. You can make your own.
Oh the scissors.
They're going back to old art to make character toys, non-character toys, these original toys. And there's a whole bunch of all sorts of modern things like that. And this little guy is from Sun Guts.
Oh yes, we'll be talking about Sun Guts a little bit today for sure.
And this is another one taken directly from Monster Parade scrolls, like those the scrolls of monsters parading all together. And I think it's really, I actually really prefer toys like this to the character stuff because it's kind of a little historic. Yeah. They're educational toys.
Damn right.
Yes, exactly.
I have this.
So, but these are more. So, this is actually an example of a more traditional Japanese toy.
It's so tiny.
Bring it up. So, this is it's a little kappa, and it's made from a painted silkworm cocoon.
Silkworm cocoon.
So, there's like this kind of. It's a type of doll.
That's Zashikiwarashi.
This is Zashikiwarashi, another type of yokai.
And that's kappa, but it's made from the silkworm cocoon.
And these are kind of, and they put a little weight in them, and they're kind of roly-polies. So stuff like that. And then Hiroko, what were you holding?
Is that a traditional or a localized?
Localized.
Yeah, very local. Yeah. You'd have to be in a, and then this one, we just got this one at a vending machine. Gashapon. Here's a nine-tailed fox.
Fox.
So there's so many collectible yokai products out there today, and you don't have to limit yourself to just Kitaro or merchandise from Yokai Watch, which is another big yokai series, and so we're living in a kind of golden age.
It is. It's like a neo. I was saying this is like a neo kaiju boom the other day to somebody because of all the new kaiju movies that are coming out.
Yeah, and
a lot of them independent stuff, but also. I mean, as far as collectibles go, absolutely, we're seeing so many new yokai things coming out. I love seeing yokai in modern day settings too, and I'm really psyched for the new yokai film that's coming out later. I think later this year, the sequel to the Great Yokai War from.
Actually, it's funny you bring that up. The Japan Society of California is having a Japan Cuts Film Fest. And I believe it starts on next week, and it runs for a week or two. And that is going to be the American debut of the new Yokai Daisenso, Great Yokai War Guardians movie. So I will give you a link to that if you can boost it. I'm sure people here. And there's also another. There's another great yokai movie on that slate called Yokai Hunter Hiroko. It's otherwise known in English as Hiroko the Goblin. Yes, from 1991. And it is a great movie by Shinya Tsukamoto, who did Tetsuo, the Iron Man, and Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer. It's a great movie. It's also available for streaming as part of the Japan Cuts in a new 2K restoration, not a 4K, a 2K restoration.
Hey, I'll take what I can get.
Exactly. So Yokai. So I'm glad you brought that movie up because you can actually see it next week.
Fantastic. We'll definitely have a link in the show notes for people to check that out. I'm just probably need to wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk about the spooky, the ooky, and the kooky of Japan's yokai, because I absolutely love this stuff. And my co-hosts and I are now going to show off some of our favorite collectibles. And hopefully we can build this yokai collector society up.
Can't stop this. Well, make this the first thing you collect, people.
Absolutely.
Make this the first thing you collect. It's full.
Pandemonium.
It's full.
And then
of,
when you get serious,
yes,
get Japan.
Exactly. So, yes, definitely. But glad we could help. Look forward to seeing your
so
stuff.
much.
Great.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Hey, and there you go. Our
Awesome.
chat with Matt Alt and Hiroko
Loved it.
Yoda. And
Love
thank you very much. If you were not aware, there were some funny cuts in there too.
Yes, there was.
That's because, of course, I couldn't keep a conversation of yokai within the 10 to 15 minute mark. And so there will be a full 45 to 50 minute conversation with the two of them. And again, I'm going to try and zhuzh it up a little bit and make it really kind of cool conversation. But thanks to everybody who's still sticking around, and the people in the chat who are chiming in during the interview. I appreciate you guys too, especially those of you who are interested in the yokai phenomenon and who are already fans. You guys rule. I've been a fan, like I said, for many, many years, and as we sort of make this entire segment come around full circle, I just thought it would be kind of fun to show off some of the cool yokai stuff that myself and my fellow collectors or collector at least have, because it's such a cool thing. It's not the yokai phenomenon is not a licensed thing. Everything in my, as Matt mentioned, everything in my collection is like a licensed figure almost, with some very small exceptions. And those small exceptions, of course, are also small yokai. So I just had a whole big thing where I talked with Matt and Hiroko. So why don't we actually just show, David, you want to show who you got right there on your desk?
Sure. Well, this is a Japanese ghost, and I don't think she's specifically the woman of the snow that Matt was talking about, but she could be. She's just.
I believe that's a Yurei, technically speaking, the one you've got there.
Yes, she's a Yurei, and she is looking a little bit sort of, non-threatening at this particular stage, but please keep your eyes on her throughout the broadcast, because you never know what might happen, later on after intermission. So anyway, she's really cool, and I think I gave you a image of the yokai that I put together in one particular photo, and I call it David's Yokai on Parade.
Nice.
And as you can see, most everything in there pretty much qualifies as a yokai. I kind of threw the god of Baradagi in there. He's sort of like a fake yokai, but yeah, I mean, he could be considered one. And that little Oni baby creature thing is another one.
Oh, yeah.
There's a Maneki Neko Cyclops in there. Of course, Fujin and Raijin, which I do have. I have yokai on ink on myself.
Oh yes, you're always yokai'd up.
And I also have a Kirin, which is another yokai up here.
Kirin, yeah.
You can't really see in this image, in this vantage, but my husband Keith also has quite a bit of yokai. He's got a really interesting story. He's got an Okiku, which was a housemaid in Japan who was suspected of stealing the porcelain, and the lord of the manor was in love with her and falsely accused her because she would not, agree to his advances. So what the punishment was is they chop off your fingers for stealing, and then they threw her down into the well, and her ghost comes up out of the well to sort of seek vengeance on the people that did her wrong. And Keith has that image on his arm, which is really pretty cool and pretty gory. I love when he explains it to people. They're like, "What the hell do you have on your arm?" But it's pretty awesome. And Keith and I both love yokai. Kyle loves yokai. That's why we're really great travelers in Japan together, because we seek out anything and everything yokai that comes our way. We went to Kappabashi Street in it's in right behind the Sensoji Temple in Asakusa, and it's this really cool street that's not only famous for its Kappa shrine, but they have Kappa images throughout the whole length of the street. There's little statues, there's little Norins, there's knickknacks, all kinds of stuff on that street, including, as I mentioned, a Kappa shrine. And you walk up these stairs, and sure enough, there's a Kappa shrine, and people do leave cucumbers for the Kappas, because we all know Kappas love cucumbers. And it was just a lot of fun to see that kind of thing. I showed you most everything in my collection in that image, but I am going to show you this one, which is really cool. Now, let's just forget it's from a really kind of not so great movie, Death Kappa. It's just I just treat it as a Kappa. It's a cool glow in the dark Kappa, and I love the way he looks. I love the sculpt. I actually do have the very same Marmot Kappa that they showed in Kyle's segment. I've got him. I actually just posted a fun picture of him in our group, in our Facebook group, if you want to check that out. And one more thing real quick. Some movies that feature what they were talking about, yokai. There's definitely yokai in Spirited Away. When they're crossing the bridge, when Chihiro is crossing the bridge, that's a whole bunch of yokai. And the bathhouse was for yokai, for the spirits. Another Miyazaki film that heavily features yokai is Kyle's favorite, Pompoko.
Right.
About the transforming Tanukis, and their plan is to frighten the humans into not developing their forest. And they finally get a hold of 3 old masters who can transform themselves into yokai, and they do. The project is called the Goblin Operation, or Operation Goblin. I'm not sure which way they say it, and it's almost succeeds in scaring the humans into not destroying their forest. So Pompoko. Also, what else is another one? Oh, and of course, Kwaidan, which is a must-watch every Halloween for me. It has a lot of awesome ghost stories, including The Woman of the Snow, which is my favorite segment on there, and Hoichi the Earless, another great story. Yeah, that's a really good one. But there's a lot of yokai stuff out there. Kinokuniya Books actually has a whole section of yokai books, including some of the ones that were featured. And I highly suggest, if you like spooky, ooky ghost stories, that you check this stuff out, because some of it is pretty scary. And I was another one of those kids who also loved things that frightened me. So ghosts and goblins and scary things scared me, but I was sort of I gravitated towards them. And I was also looking under my bed and in the closet and the whole thing. So yes, I was very happy that Kyle wanted to talk about yokai in this particular episode. And yeah, that's about all I have to say. And I'm looking forward to the new film and to the box set, which is a must-have. And yeah, that's it. Woo!
I'm just kind of curious, as I forgot to ask you, John, do you actually have anything yokai related that you're looking to show off right now?
No, I have just a few small things
problem,
tucked away.
Yeah, that's all good. No worries. So I'll just go ahead and I'll show off some stuff I got. See if I can do the yokai proud. Number one, this killer shirt from Holy Mountain Printing. Is featuring the very first film in the trilogy's poster artwork, Yokai Hyako Monogatari, which basically means 100 ghost stories. And in terms of collectibles, for quite a long time, there weren't a lot of collectibles available for those films' characters. Now, I'm saying this as a man in today's society, collector society, looking to get collectibles in the yokai realm. But really, back in the day, I don't know how old they are, a company called Nito actually released a whole bunch of yokai figures that are quite expensive if you're going for the vintage looks. I, however, am not. So the oldest figure that I own, and I'm actually not even sure if it shows the copyright or the production date on it, but is from the second film, Spook Warfare. This is a Bear Model. That's the company. Bear Model created this this character whose name I can't remember, but he's like a fox, and he goes sucks in a bunch of air into his belly, and his belly turns big and bulbous and acts like a crystal ball in the film. Really weird, but also somewhat steeped in. I think he's a fox, so I think he's somewhat steeped in that stuff. He's also, like I said, from Spook Warfare. Secondarily, I would show some of the other oldest stuff that I have, which is not really that old, except for the fact that I'm kind of old. And these are these are the X Plus Polystone Yokai sets. Now, they made 3 to 4 sets, and this is so old that the little padding just came off from the base here. But yeah, they made these sets, and they each come with, I think, 3 yokai.
Nice.
Except the little Dai logo. It's hard to see. Dai logo right there on the
I see it. I see it.
And so they're really nice. They're really well sculpted, but they're teeny tiny, And in fact, the one I have, the X Plus I have of this figure, of this character, he's got a sword, and along the lines, like, I bumped into it, and so the sword broke, so I had to like re-glue it, so it doesn't look like a nice straight sword anymore. Anyway, moving on, though, I should probably mention Sun Guts. I probably already did mention Sun Guts when we talked about yokai before. Matt Alt mentioned Sun Guts because they produce these figures that are directly from the Hyakiyago Demon Parade stuff. So this is a weird creature. And to sort of piggyback on what he was showing with the Kurata stuff, while this figure was made by Sun Guts, I actually do have that character represented in a card form.
Wow.
Nice.
Super cool.
Secondary card.
Yeah.
So I just wanted, it's like I've been collecting this stuff for a long time. I finally get to show off some of it.
Mhm.
So Sun Guts, they made this guy. They made this Kappa. And they do these, like, these are Sofubi, so they do them in different colorways. This is a Nurayonhon, which I think I'm butchering that name. And then last but not least from Sun Guts is this crazy cool. Oh no, that's not all. It's like a dragon bell thing with the turtle shell, and then this one is the last but not least one. This actually is a bell. The yokai element is a bell. This is like the part that you smack, and then this is the opening, and it's for a temple.
Fantastic.
I absolutely love these things. Okay, last but not least. Definitely not last. This is a tiny little Tanooki.
Oh, yes.
Now, David has another Tanooki like this, but he's got the glowy version, I think.
I do. Yes.
So there's lots of different versions of these that you can get out there. This was actually created by an artist named Konatsu, and it's showing off this very, very famous tale of a Tanooki that hides in a monk's hut when the monk is cooking, and he turns himself, because they're shapeshifters, the Tanooki turns himself into a pot, and then the priest realizes something's up, and he puts the pot on the fire, and the Tanooki goes and runs away. And that's like a really classic yokai tale.
Absolutely.
I love that stuff. You saw the Karakasa here from that X Plus piece, but I also have the Tomy version.
Oh, neat.
Which these were produced by Maru-san, actually. I talked to him. He was thrilled when I was like, oh my gosh, you produced these? Because I had some of them on Eiji Kaminaga is the guy I'm talking about there. And last but not least, these are 2 of the more independent produced pieces that I own. Number 1 is this, I think it's Kudafumi. I'm probably saying that wrong.
I love that.
This was made by a company called Mighty Jacks. If you follow Peter Santamaria's stuff, they're the company that's making his Daruma.
Yes.
And then I cannot remember who made this, but I've showed it off before.
I want
This is
that
something
so
I
bad.
picked up in
Weird.
Japan.
Wow.
It's a classic Japanese yokai tale turned into one or two, I think, tales turned into one figure. So you've got this Chochinobake, the lantern ghost at the bottom, and coming out of the lantern is it looks like Oiwa, but she's got tattoos all over.
What in the world?
Yeah, dude, this is
That's
gorgeous.
on my list, man. That is way up there with the Science Patrol headquarters, man. I love that piece.
the funny story about that is I just walked into one of the special mandarakes, kind of like bumming around, looking through the cases. I was like, oh, this beauty needs to come home with me. Like, I'd never seen it before. It
Just
was
like
totally
the Science
awesome.
Patrol. That's the same
man.
way you found the Science. Well, actually, Lady Kyle found it, but right?
Well, she was with me. I think I saw it. I think I was the one that gasped.
Lucky.
Lucky. Anyway, the last yokai thing I want to share is, I can't remember if I shared this, but I ordered it last year. You guys can tell me if you recall this. This is actually a karakasa, an umbrella ghost that was sculpted out of mammoth bone.
Wow.
So it's like a Natsuke style.
It's a real Natsuki or Netsuki. See, there's the two holes on the back that you pass the cord through. So, when I embrace my full weeb and start wearing my kimono around, this will be the thing that holds my little wallet to my obi.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. Yes, I said that live. It's cool. Oh, we just lost so many viewers. Anyway, thank you. Seriously, though, to the people who are still watching and they're hanging out, thank you for hanging out through that segment. That does wrap up the yokai segment, and it is high time that we fired up our intermission, took a little break, and come back with our chatter about the 50th anniversary of Godzilla versus Hedorah. See you in I think it's like almost 3 minutes long.